Italy is a unique nation, a true wonder that encompasses the heritage of numerous ethnic groups and centuries. Now it's time to delve into what befell the peninsula after the end of its long imperial power. What transformative stages did the country go through, and what astonishing events unfolded here? What military clashes were you completely unaware of? And who exactly was Giuseppe Garibaldi? Prepare yourself, because our grandiose odyssey is about to begin. We begin with the era of the ascent of the Germanic rulers to the throne. This turbulent Middle Ages covers the period between 476 and 774. The first date is marked by the fact that it was then that the Germanic warlord overthrew the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, and proclaimed himself King of Italy. The times of these Germanic monarchs' rule are strikingly distinct. These military leaders relentlessly dragged the country into endless battles. A series of these confrontations split Italy into a community of regional state principalities. Furthermore, the power of the Germanic rulers was fragile, which negatively affected the wealth of the populace and economic development. However, despite the hardships, the period of the Germanic king's reign is considered a key phase in the formation of national statehood. During this era, provincial state formations such as the Lombard Kingdom, Venice, Florence, the Papal Republic, Siena, and others finally took shape. Next, we must talk about perhaps one of the brightest pages in Italy's history, the Renaissance. The Renaissance in Italy unfolded in the 14th century, when the country was experiencing a moment of economic and spiritual rise. Italian city-states such as Florence, Venice, Rome, and Milan became the epicenters of a new culture and education, where literature, philosophy, music, painting, and sculpture were wildly developing. During this marvelous era, numerous renowned artists such as Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, and Botticelli created their unique masterpieces, which turned into symbols of the age. A cornerstone of the Renaissance was the respect for individuality and human dignity, which was brightly manifested in art and writing. Artists depicted not only gods but also ordinary mortals. Literature became more vital and humane, illuminating themes related to nature, love, and human psychology. The Italian Renaissance also had a profound influence on scientific thought and philosophy. During this period, scientists began to investigate the surrounding world, laying the foundations for new scientific concepts. Galileo Galilei, one of the most distinguished researchers of the Renaissance, made breakthroughs in astronomy, mathematics, and physics. Among his achievements are the formulation of the laws of motion and the substantiation of the heliocentric theory, which led to his confrontation with the church hierarchy. The Renaissance era also initiated philosophical trends such as humanism, which focused attention on the significance of man, his honor, and freedom of will. The worldview ideas of the Renaissance significantly contributed to the further development of European spirituality and intellect. In the 18th century, Italy became one of the leading centers of the Enlightenment in Europe. This period was marked by the revitalization of scientific activity, philosophy, and powerful efforts in the field of education. Italian higher education institutions and schools were among the best in Europe. How did the country survive the early modern period? This stage began at the end of the 15th century, the capture of Naples by Spain, and lasted until the French Revolution in 1789. This segment of time was characterized by competition for supremacy between European states and the powerful influence of art and science on Italy's cultural life. At the dawn of the early modern period, Italy was fragmented into several state entities, governed by different monarchs. The main ones included Savoy, Venice, the Papal States, and Naples. These principalities often entered into military conflicts, causing instability. However, Italy continued to be a center of art and scientific thought in Europe. Separately, it is worth discussing the period of the Reformation and Counter-Reformation in Italy. The Reformation, a protest movement that flared up in the 16th century against the Catholic Church, spread throughout Europe. In Italy, the Reformation found fewer adherents due to the unwavering authority of the Catholic Church. However, centers of reformist sentiment arose here, and in 1536, Pope Paul III created a special college for the reform of the Church. Some Italian clergy also joined Protestant movements, among them Giordano Bruno, who was executed by the Inquisition. In response to the Reformation, the Catholic Church initiated the Counter-Reformation, which aimed to suppress heresy and strengthen Catholic dogmas. In Italy, the Church resolutely used its power. The Counter-Reformation also led to the revival of Italian art and architecture. One of the most significant events was the formation of the Society of Jesus, or Jesuits, in 1540. The society was founded by Saint Ignatius of Loyola with the intention of opposing the Reformation. In Italy, the Jesuits focused their activities on preaching, mentoring, and education. And speaking of the Renaissance, one cannot ignore Baroque and Classicism. These are two powerful artistic directions that gained popularity in Italy in the 17th and 18th centuries. Baroque was distinguished by excessive detail, curved lines, and deep drama, while Classicism was more restrained, based on the canons of proportionality and harmony. Baroque flourished in the 17th century, with Rome and Venice serving as its key centers. One of the most famous Baroque masters of the brush was Michelangelo da Caravaggio, who skillfully used the contrasts of light and shadow. Another prominent figure was Bernini, who produced countless magnificent sculptures. Classicism, which celebrated ancient ideals, gained recognition in the 18th century when architects and artists began to return to the precepts of antiquity. Raphael, known for his frescoes in the Vatican and his paintings, serves as a vivid example of a master of classicism. Both artistic movements were significant factors in European culture, strongly influencing the formation of art in other countries. By the end of the 18th century, Italy was divided among various European states. The Great Revolutionary War, 1789 to 1799, brought new upheavals. In 1796, Napoleon Bonaparte invaded Italy and began implementing reforms aimed at uniting the nation and founding the Italian Republic. However, in 1815, Napoleon was defeated, and Italy was divided again. This state lasted until 1861, when the Kingdom of Italy was born thanks to the activity of the Risorgimento. Giuseppe Garibaldi is considered a leading figure in the unification of Italy. King Victor Emmanuel II became the first monarch, and Turin was chosen as the capital. In 1866, Italy annexed Venice, and in 1871, Rome was proclaimed the capital. It's time to move to the times more familiar to us from school textbooks. Italy during World War I became an ally of the Entente, entering the confrontation with the Central Powers in 1915. The joining was motivated by the desire to expand territories and increase influence, as well as the Entente's promises of territorial compensation. At the beginning of the war, the Italian army tried to advance on Austro-Hungarian positions in the Alps, but encountered fierce resistance. The Italian army was only able to break the Austro-Hungarian defense line in 1917 after exhausting battles on the Isonzo front. Overall, Italy was unable to achieve significant triumphs on the military theaters. In addition to combat, Italy also faced economic and social problems. The conflict led to a sharp increase in food prices, which worsened living conditions. The country's economy was undermined by the colossal expenditures on military needs. In 1918, World War I ended with the victory of the Entente, which included Italy. The Italian army played a significant role. As a result of the triumph, Italy gained territorial acquisitions, including the provinces of Trentino and South Tyrol, as well as parts of Dalmatia and Fiume. However, victory did not bring political stabilization. The post-war country faced deep social and political crises, including rising unemployment, hyperinflation, and a wave of protests and strikes. It was an extremely difficult period. The interwar period was characterized by both social and political upheavals and cultural and economic upliftment. In 1922, the fascist regime of Benito Mussolini came to power, introducing an authoritarian dictatorship. He united the nation, boosted the economy and infrastructure, and restored national pride. However, from the 1930s, his regime became more repressive and brutal. Mussolini established total control over life in Italy and persecuted opponents. All political parties were banned, and many citizens were imprisoned. Nevertheless, in the interwar period, Italy also became a center of cultural development. Various artistic directions, including the film industry, musical art, and literature, flourished. The famous Cinecittà studios were founded in Rome. The musical sphere reached great heights. Composers Giacomo Puccini, Giuseppe Verdi, and Arturo Toscanini created operas. However, this time was overshadowed by significant financial difficulties. In the 1930s, many Italians faced unemployment, and the pace of economic growth slowed down. Furthermore, the Italo-Ethiopian campaign began in 1935, provoking international sanctions and financial complications. Subsequently, in 1939, Italy signed a non-aggression pact with Nazi Germany, which led to its entry into World War II on the side of the Axis powers. The conflict brought huge losses to Italy. In 1943, Allied forces invaded Italian territory, after which King Victor Emmanuel III removed Mussolini and initiated peace negotiations. However, after switching sides to the Allies, Italy faced new challenges: food shortages and large-scale destruction. In 1946, the Kingdom of Italy was transformed into a republic, and a new constitution was approved. Since then, Italy has become one of the leading economic and cultural centers of the world. In 1947, the Paris Peace Treaty was signed, which softened reparations obligations and required the return of conquered territories. Italy joined the UN and received financial support from the US under the Marshall Plan. These events became the starting point for economic and social recovery. In the 1950s, an economic boom began, which lasted until the end of the 60s and went down in history as the economic miracle. This time was marked by rapid industrial growth, job creation, and improved living conditions. The economic surge was associated with the prosperity of several industries: textile, automotive, and the implementation of innovative technologies. Despite the successes, this period was accompanied by political and social protests. The 60s saw a social revitalization that led to improved working conditions and expanded civil liberties. In 1968, the Student Revolution erupted, causing radical changes in the educational system and the strengthening of social protection. However, in the 1970s, Italy faced a series of new problems: the crisis associated with the oil shock, hyperinflation, and the deterioration of the financial situation. In 1978, the assassination of former Prime Minister Aldo Moro, who was kidnapped by the extremist group Red Brigades, occurred. This led to a strengthening of counterterrorism measures. Despite these hardships, Italy continued its development, and at the end of the 70s, economic growth resumed. During this period, the state began to play a more prominent role in international politics. In the 1980s, Italy faced serious economic difficulties, provoked by high inflation and huge public debt. The government adopted a package of measures for economic reform, including expenditure cuts and inflation reduction. These steps had a positive effect, and in the 90s, the economy continued its ascent. In recent years, Italy has faced new challenges, such as the financial recession and increased migration flows. However, the country still remains one of the leading states in the world: tourism, fashion, design. In addition, Italy is a key member of the European Union and NATO and actively participates in the resolution of global conflicts. Today, Italy has a highly developed economy based on industry, tourism, and services, and holds the second position in Europe for the production and export of leather goods, footwear, furniture, and clothing. The high-tech industry also flourishes in Italy. However, Italy does not stop struggling with economic and social problems, including high unemployment, poverty, corruption, and social inequality. Furthermore, the migration crisis has become a tangible challenge, provoking tensions. Overall, Italy maintains its status as an important player on the world stage with its strengths and weaknesses, and tirelessly seeks ways to solve its own problems and strengthen its international position. This is the history of Italy, extremely rich and full of events. Even after the collapse of the Roman Empire, Italy retained its identity, having a rich chronicle that contained both dark and bright pages. Until we meet again, friends.